Hello, everybody. Sophia Parola here with the Garden State Film Festival, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing two very special people. They were a part of the making of the documentary feature Coogan's Way. We are here with Glenn, the director, and Peter Walsh, who is in the documentary.
Mhm.
Hello, guys. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi,
Thanks for having
Sophia.
us.
So, before we get started, I'd love for you both to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Glenn, as a director, if you can tell our audiences a little bit about Coogan's Way.
Sure. Well, we'll let Peter start out.
Awesome.
Well, I'm Peter Walsh. I'm one of the owners of Coogan's, which was a bar in New York, Washington Heights. And my partners with Dave and Tess. We had an incredible partnership over 35 years. We never had an argument once. If this was a marriage, it would have been the perfect marriage. And it was a very fortunate thing. And we landed in Washington Heights at a time when it was probably one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the country, let alone the city, and possibly the world even. The murder rates were the record breaking. It was the portal for all drugs coming into the eastern seaboard of America. And that's when we decided, what a great place to open a bar.
I was a longtime patron of the bar. I worked at a sports facility that was pretty much the back room of the bar, and I worked there while I was attending NYU for graduate film school, and I regularly went to the bar. I eventually, after I graduated film school, I moved to the Washington, D.C. area to work in the news and documentary world. And I watched from afar as this crazy fight back against a massive rent hike was happening. And I said to myself, gosh, this would make a great documentary. And, there's these weird moments, and I think every documentarian's life when they go, gosh, that would make a great documentary. And then you have to come to the realization, wait, I'm a documentarian. Why am I not making this documentary? So I called up my old friend Peter. The joke I like to make is that the one of the great things about the saloon keeper is they either remember their patrons or they pretend to remember their patrons. And I said, I used to drink a lot at your bar, and I loved it. I want to come up and make a documentary. And he said, sure. And I thought this was going to be a short project I could turn around pretty quickly. It ended up being about 3.5 years of my life and my first feature
Wow.
film.
Wow. Well,
So
congratulations on your
thank you.
first feature.
Thank
Obviously,
you.
it's a success. 3.5 years. You can tell that you guys put a lot of effort into making this. So, Peter, I mean, how does it feel? How did you feel when Glenn first came to you saying he wanted to make a documentary? And was while the bar was still open, right?
Yes, and I did remember Glenn. He's a memorable person, and he has a love for track and field, which I also share. Um, it's you're really asking me about how am I doing now because I'm so used to Glenn being behind me with the camera. I feel kind of lonely since he's finished his project. So, it was having a family member. Glenn became part of our family, um, and he was a welcome member of our family. He had a sense of humor, but he was also studious in having a mission that he was on. And we didn't understand the mission. The first thing I said to Glenn, I said, don't you need a dead body to make a movie interesting? He says, oh, I think I can provide that. Um, but he came in, and it's almost. I said to someone recently, I said, those jokes, a priest, a rabbi, and a minister go into a bar. Well, a neighborhood walks into a bar, they drink, they eat, they even pay, and then they hold up the bar and they steal our hearts and soul. And that's what happened to us. We ran a business, and we had probably one of the most integrated bars in America or the world. It was Dominican, it was Hispanic, it was Italian, it was Irish, it was Jewish, it was black, it was, you'd say, the colors of the religions, and it mixed. And people weren't used to it 35 years ago, in a sense. They walked in, they almost got scared. When you saw downtown people coming up, going to the hospital or the university, they would look around and you could see them saying, am I at the right place? And after they walked in, they became old timers within a very short amount of time.
Wow.
It worked. And it was part of the American tapestry working at its best. And, we think as parents, or we think as teachers, or we think as even bar owners. We think we run things, but it's not. Children tell the parents what to do. Students tell the teachers what they need. And our patrons taught us how to be bar owners or partners. They really became our partners. And that's what it was. So we were welcomed into their lives, and they were welcomed into our lives.
You guys absolutely captured that family, diverse crowd community in this documentary. Glenn, tell me about when you first started to the end. I mean, obviously a lot has changed, including Coogan's.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, the first thing was, I set out to tell this simple story about a place that I loved that was in this big fight for to save themselves, this big rent fight, and you know, all of a sudden I have Jim Dwyer, a two-time Pulitzer winner, in my film. I have Jared Harris, one of the most bankable TV and film stars in the world, in my film. I have Lin-Manuel Miranda's family in my film, and all of a sudden I have Lin-Manuel Miranda singing "Happy Birthday" in my movie, and his wonderful, wonderful office licensing me footage, and like this thing spiraled out of control because all of these people love this place. I interviewed Charlie Rangel. I did interviews with, I'm a professor of film, so I took my students with me to interview congressmen up on Capitol Hill. This is all a story about a small Irish pub and this world that opened up to me, this access that I was able to get to these famous, important people because I had the bona fides of working with Coogan's and having the seal of approval of I'm telling this story about Coogan's. It was crazy. And then we were done. We had a beautiful film. I had this beautiful ending of a dewy-eyed Peter saying, "Thank you for helping save me. We're going to have our next St. Patty's Day. We never knew the community cared this much, and we're going to celebrate and keep thriving." And then COVID came, and we delayed our release of the film a year, and that last 12 minutes of the film got real creative really fast, and we had to reinvent the film from scratch because that was not an ending anyone anticipated. I don't think anyone could have scripted that ending, on especially the fact that it happened on St. Patrick's Day. And I don't want to spoil the ending for any of the Garden State Film Festival fans who are going to come watch the film, but there's a lot of catharsis at the end of the film, and we had to get really creative in the treatment because this was all happening while we were in the middle of that lockdown period. And I'm actually an asthmatic, and there was no way I could leave the house to go film this as it was happening. So I leveraged a lot of local people. We filmed sequences using Facebook Live. We did interviews over the phone. We used a lot of still photos and FaceTime conversations. We had to get really creative to tell that final chapter.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think obviously it was a necessity to include so many businesses were affected from the pandemic. A lot of filmmakers were affected, and it's great that you put this in it, but it's not great about what happened to Coogan's. I mean, Peter, how does it feel to have been interviewed and doing this documentary and then now watching it back? I mean, Coogan, not to give anything away, it's not the same as it was while you were filming this documentary. So how are you feeling?
Well, Sophia, even my children liked me for about 5 minutes. It was wonderful. Ego-wise, it was a boost to us, and yet at the same time, it humbled us. I think by the attention that was given by Glenn and by the camera and by his questioning us and by him searching out the different people who came into Coogan's, he intellectualized us also. When we realized what we were surrounded by, we had parties in our back room for Nobel laureates in physics and in chemistry. We had, the next night, we had a party for the football team and watching a baseball game. We had people who were taught at the Sorbonne, who are African American and university teachers at Columbia University, mixing with cops, talking about, what should be done with the, reparations for slavery. This is at our bar. And this was done in not an argumentative sense. It was done in, we don't understand what it is. Explain it to me. And then, well, what do you think about it? What's your say? So people were talking to each other in a way that they don't necessarily talk to each other in a very polarized society as we had become. And now we were an outpost. We were the Foreign Legion in our own country, and it was a wonderful thing. People came to us for safety many years ago. They felt safe, and an old nun taught me once when my daughter was going to a Catholic school. She said, "Peter, do you know why your daughter is here?" And I said, "Sister, I have a feeling you're going to tell me." She says, "Number one, we're going to make them safe. And if they're safe, they will be joyful. And if they're safe and joyful, we can teach them anything." It's the same thing as everything in my life and in the life of Coogan's. Safety, joy, and an intellectual experience that was beyond even a beer.
I love that. Glenn, did you know where the story was going when you guys originally started this, or people kept coming? Like, did you know who you were going to talk to, what the story arc was all before, or it kind of just happened as you were filming?
So I'm in my the basement of my house right now, and I have this little room where I that I use as an office. And out in the main room of the basement, I took all of my interviews, and I did 26 interviews, and my poor students helped me transcript them.
Oh,
And it looks like that crazy person scene, that crazy outpost scene in A Beautiful Mind, where the professor's connecting it with strings and tape. I took all of the interview transcripts and taped them on the wall and crafted the story out of that. So I
wow.
went in with approximately the same questions for everyone. Tell me the story of this time period. Tell me what Coogan's meant to you. Tell me about the neighborhood. Tell me about how Coogan's played a role in the neighborhood. And then I started assembling. And we did a paper edit of the film. When we did the paper edit and moved it to our first video cut of the film, it clicked in at just shy of 3 hours. Then we trimmed as when we premiered. We had our world premiere at Harlem International, which was a really just a wonderful place for the film to premiere. It was one of the first. It was in May of last year. It was one of the first festivals to have like in-person screenings after the pandemic. We were at an hour and 12 minutes, I think. When we connected with WNET in New York, we did a 55-minute version, and that's sort of what has been the standardized version and what's going to be screening at Garden State Film Festival, and that's what's screened out at Newport Beach. That's what's screened down in Australia at the Melbourne Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. So the story was ever evolving, but it got tighter and stronger and more succinct, and it got smarter as we trimmed more and really got to the essence of the story. And I try to tell everyone it's really easy to walk into a situation and say, I got a movie about a bar. I've got a documentary film about an Irish pub in a Dominican neighborhood. And that's your log line. That's the easy sell. But it's a film about so much more than that. It's a film about community. It's a film about politics. It's a film about Latin American studies and the sort of wider Dominican diaspora. It's a film about so many different things. It's a film about the history of the 1980s and all of these little things that factored into it. One of the things I'm most proud of is, in a lot of ways, the film is a tribute to the legendary reporter Jim Dwyer. I've become friendly with Jim Dwyer's family, and there's a celebration of Jim Dwyer in there. And there's all these little things that I didn't anticipate that this film was going to be. And, I'm very close to the film. I can recite entire sections. My poor editor and we can literally recite chapters of it. I'm sure Peter can too at this point. But I still look at it every time I screen it. I still discover new things about it and different angles and different directions I could have gone with different storylines. The issue was never finding enough to say. The issue was finding, what do I want to say? Which directions do I want to go? I
Yeah.
mean, on the cutting room floor, I have interviews with half a dozen Olympic gold medalists, and the world record holder in the shot put. Because we were going to have this whole separate angle about what this meant to the sporting community, and it just didn't work in the final narrative.
Wow.
I mean, when you're cutting out like Olympic gold medalists, you've got something good.
Right. Wow. I couldn't imagine all of that, all those important, beautiful interviews and having to cut them down, but you have to do
Yeah.
that in the film world.
And I mean, the archive footage and the old
Right.
photos, and we had to hustle to get a lot of that stuff too. I worked with some of the best fair use attorneys in the world. They all worked pro bono. Legitimately, some of the best fair use attorneys in the world were able to get us access to that footage. We worked with Getty, which is an institution that is not known for being terribly, generous with discounts. They loved the project and gave us a 95% off discount on their archive footage because they cared about the project. I said, I'm an academic. I'm doing a documentary about a bar. It's a special piece. Is there anything you can do for me? And our original $25,000 invoice all of a sudden was kind of just disappeared. And a lot of people along the way there were expenses on this film, like lawyer bills and rights and clearances bills. The invoices just never arrived at my doorstep because I did this with the blessing of Coogan's, and people really loved that place.
Oh, this is amazing. I mean, I loved the documentary. You could feel all the love in the family and just the openness that Coogan's had. And this interview really, it parallels that. I have to wrap it up though. So Peter, I would love to ask you, what are you hoping audiences at the Garden State Film Festival get out of watching Coogan's Way? You were there from the beginning. You're there now at the end watching this. And, what are you hoping the impact it leaves?
Well, I just was in Ashbury Park about a few weeks ago, and I was there with the coach from Duke University, track and field coach, who just retired, and he's a Springsteen nut. I think they call him Spring Nuts. So I fell in love with Ashbury Park. I mean, I just said, "Oh man, this is cool. This place is crusty."
What a great place for Coogan's Bar too. Just
Well,
saying,
yeah,
Asbury's great.
it had a freakadelic about it, as they say in Harlem. It had a freakadelic about it. Here I am. I never seen a beach that charged to get on the beach. That was the only thing that flipped me out. But I'm watching and I'm looking at the mingling of all kinds of people. All different tastes. It was like looking at a great ice cream parlor with 10,000 flavors. So I had a ball down, and the Coogan's family reaches into New Jersey. Being down there with the Springsteen people, and I happen to like Springsteen. He's part of the Jersey vibe to me. And I remember the first time I heard him on a jukebox. So here I am in Ashbury Park, and I'm saying, wow. And then I find out we're going to be in a festival there. And then all of a sudden, the Irish especially, I have to say, have jumped on board in New Jersey to the idea of the film. And the ones who I've been contacting are say, oh, we're going to make it a reunion. So there's a Jersey side to Coogan. Remember, Coogan's was just on the other side of the George Washington Bridge. Right. So, I mean, we were touching Jersey. We were touching Jersey just like George Washington was touching Jersey when he had to escape there to keep the revolution going. And so when I look at that Jersey family of ours, I was talking to people from Jersey City, Newark, who hopefully are going to come down and see the film with us at a bowling alley. It doesn't get better than that. Is so cool. I mean, I'm going to tell you something. That is exactly Coogan's. To have a film about a bar in Ashbury Park in a bowling alley. What more can you want in life?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's it, man. That's it. I mean, that's
I'm hoping the audience looks a lot like what it looked like in Coogan's Bar, and you feel the same energy.
I hope people come. I hope they show up. We're also celebrating with another film down there, The Hollywood Priest, which was filmed by a Polish priest.
Yes.
My partner, Dave Hunt. His brother, Father Michael Hunt, was a Polish priest, and we became very close with the Polish priest and their mission of communications and coming to people who are undernourished and nourishing them. So I'm having a ball going down there, and I feel like I'm going to be at a Coogan's reunion, and I hope to see you there.
Oh, absolutely. Are you talking to me or Glenn? We'll both be there. I will be there.
and I promise to buy you a drink.
Glenn,
I
how
would
do you feel?
I would just love to say, and I mentioned this before the interview started rolling. This is one of our last festivals. Like we've been on the festival circuit for almost a calendar year now, and this is going to
Wow.
be one of our last ones. And we were invited to apply to this after we met some of your wonderful folks out at Newport Beach, and I was so over the moon when I got accepted. This is a bit of a homecoming for me. I am my brother lives in Bergen County, and I slept on his couch while I was making this film. So I got this film has New Jersey all over it. Dave Hunt, one of the main subjects of the film, lives in New Jersey. But beyond that, um, my grandparents lived on Boston Boulevard in Seagirt, New Jersey. And I spent at least 1 or 2 weekends a month going to the Jersey Shore growing up. This wasn't just a summer thing for me. I have a whole lot of Jersey Shore in me, so it's to be able to bring my film to a community that kind of feels like home to me is really special, and I can't wait. This is just going to be.
Sophia, now you know why you had a problem editing. The two of us, between Glenn and I, it's
There's
tough
no
to say.
editing of this interview. It's going to be 20 minutes long
I'm
of
it's tough
amazing
to make this 10
love.
minutes. But at the same time, when he found out, the way to design this film in a sense, and to give it a point of, we were also the first theater in Washington Heights. Our waiters put on plays. We had an art contingent there of artists and poets that weekly showed their art. We had a poetry recital, and he took and how he funneled this into the story he did and how he chose it. It still amazes me because I thought it would have to be a 15-hour film.
Probably could have been, right?
No, I mean,
I would have run out of B-roll eventually.
but it was mad. But here's the one thing I would love to happen with this film, and I'm so happy it's going down to Ashbury Park, especially. I would love this to get over to Ireland, because that's what all bars in the world are based on. The Irish welcome. The Irish, their pubs from the 1800s became a place for people to keep warm, to find out what was going on in a neighborhood, where marriages were made, where the prices of pigs were found out, and fiddles were played and poets, recited. And I would love that to go. I would love the film somehow to make it to Ireland, to where the source of all the Coogans are. And I don't care if you're an Italian bar or any other kind of bar. There's an essence of the Irish pub that has influenced every type of bar and restaurant in the world.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said it. Let it come true.
Yeah.
Someone from Ireland will see this and be like, oh, the
Hopefully.
festival, and put this in. It will happen. I love that it's like a homecoming for you both, physically for you, Glenn, spiritually, and I hope everybody in Coogan's bar will just come to watch this in person. Like you said, it's playing in the bowling alley. It will be screening at Asbury Lane Saturday, March 26th in the film block, 8:30 to 10:45 p.m. So it's an awesome time, Saturday night. Come watch Coogan's Way. The documentary, you'll enjoy it. We will love it. And thank you guys for taking some time out to talk to me about the making of it.
You were a pleasure, Sophia. Thank you for talking
Thank you. You guys are a pleasure to interview and talk to.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck. See you at the festival.
See you at the festival.